Okay, let me close this up, and let me go to my Visual Studio. All right, so last week we play around with several jQuery experiments, and it's time to put it together into something we could build on top of what we learned from last week. Make sense? So in here, I'm going to create a new folder where I'm going to put the small project that we could complete in maybe an hour and a half, or maybe two lectures. All right, so let's get started today. I want to build an online WYSIWYG editor, right? So that people can create their own web pages, right? Create their own content, and then store many pages and create a website. Almost like a web content, a content management system, where they can they can drag and drop, put images, put paragraphs. They can edit it, right? So let's call it a what you see is what you get, a WYSIWYG editor. So in here, I'm going to create a small web page. I'm going to create an HTML document, and it'll be some what you see is what you get, WYSIWYG.html. And let's see. So we'll import jQuery like we did last week. Right. So from in here, we're going to say script source, and I believe we're going to go up one and then go down to the JavaScript folder, and in here we have the JavaScript. There it is for jQuery. And another one that we're going to load is the UI portion of jQuery, right? That includes all the things that we need to be able to do, like for dragging and resizing and and sortables and all those kind of widgets, right? We're going to load that as well. So source, we need to do that after we load the jQuery library. So there it is. I'm going to load that. And some of these, widgets in here depend on the theme, right? On the CSS that goes along with jQuery, right? For instance, the resizable widget only works if you load the theme. Otherwise, it won't work, right? Draggable, I believe it works fine. Sortable works fine, but resizable only works if we also load the style sheet. So let's load the style sheet as well. So we'll say link, and we'll load. We're going to go up one into CSS and down into into CSS, into smoothness, and there it is. We'll load that. Well, that's it. And we'll load also Bootstrap, just to make it look a little prettier. Okay, so we'll go up one, and then go into CSS, and then go to Bootstrap. There it is. I think that's all we need. We need the route, style sheet. There we go. Okay. All right, everybody good? All right, so we're ready to start creating our script. And last week we created our script inside of a script tag, did we not? All right. This week, what we should do instead is a better practice is to put it in a separate file. Okay, so we're going to put it in a separate file, and this is what I would expect in your project. It's okay if you're doing it in experiments, right? That you're loading this, you're putting the script inside of your experiment. That's okay, right? But for your project, please follow good practices, right? So do all your styling in a separate CSS file. Do all your coding in JavaScript. Put it in a separate script file. So let's do that. Since this is somewhat of a pseudo project, we're going to store it in a local JavaScript folder in here. So I'm going to create a JavaScript folder. Put it in here, JavaScript. And in there, we're going to create a new JavaScript file. New JavaScript. We'll call it app.js or application. Right? And in here, we're going to link it and say after we load the jQuery, we will load our own. We put links first. And in here, we're going to load the script. We're going to say script source. We're going to go into our JS directory, and we're going to load our apps directory. So that's where we're going to put our application. Okay, right? And also, we should load here any style sheets that we might need for ourselves. Yes, right? So let's also create a CSS file, right, specifically for our project. So let's create a directory here, CSS directory, right? And in here, we're going to create a style sheet in there. We'll say add a new style sheet. We'll call it app.css. Okay, and let's link it from in here. It should be the last thing we link, right? Because if there's something that Bootstrap does that we don't like it, we could override Bootstrap in our own .css. Okay, that's why we're putting it last, so that if we don't like if the buttons have radiuses and we have them kind of, we don't like that, we would like them to be straight, or we don't like certain coloring, we could change that. We could override that in our app.css. Yes. Okay, so let's link here href. Let's go into our CSS. We're going to load app.css. Make sense? There we go. I think we're ready. We might not even need this HTML file anymore, because actually we do. We're going to add one more thing in this file. There's going to be a dynamically generated page, right? jQuery is going to generate most of this content, right? Because we're going to be adding content, adding divs and HTML and H1s and paragraphs, images, YouTube, video. But dynamically, we're going to add those things. We're going to store most of this in the database, right? And we're going to dynamically generate this. But the only thing that we're going to put in here is it's a little bit of a toolbar, right? Somewhat of some controller that would allow us to manipulate this document, right? For instance, we might want in here, way at the bottom, we might want a toolbar, right? So let's create here a toolbar. Okay. And here we might want something like a small form, and have here perhaps a button that allows us to add all sorts of things to the page. Okay, so let's create an add button, and let's say the class is button, and it's a button success, right? So we're going to use well, I don't know if we need a form, but we definitely need a button. It allows us to add different things to our page. Let's run this. Right now it says add button, right? But I don't want it way at the top. I want it away from the content, way at the bottom, so I can manipulate. My content is going to be somewhere in the center of this page. And this add button, I want it to be at the bottom, a toolbar that maybe like we did last week. Did we do that last week? I forget. Where it would show up and would hide. Okay, let's do that here today. We have a toolbar. Let's go into our CSS and say, okay, my toolbar, I would like it to be positioned at the bottom, so it's always stuck at the bottom, right? Like a footer, right? So let's change its position. I'm going to say that its position is absolute, right? And I want it with bottom 0 pixels. So I want it stuck at the bottom, right? So let's run that. There it is. It's at the bottom, right? But it'd be nice if it's not only stuck at the bottom, but it's centered somewhat, right? So I don't like it way at the on the left. So I might do the following. Perhaps let's add a. Let's center this. No, let's not center that. Let's give that a width. Let's see what color it is. Let's see what it's occupying. Let's see background color. Let's put it just a red, just to make sure to see what it looks like. So red. All right. So notice that you see there. Right, it's taking up only the space of the button, right? Generally, divs take up the entire width. Yes? But because we positioned it absolutely, it only takes up the width of the whatever's inside of it. All right, that makes sense. Right, when we take it off of the normal rendering, right, the normal rendering, right, it takes the width of whatever it's inside. All right, so let's fix that, and I'll say that the width comes back to be 100%. Okay, so it is 100%. Okay, and whatever's inside, I would like to have some kind of margin, right, on the left-hand side and on the right-hand side, and whatever's inside, I want it to be centered. Right, so for instance, what we might want to do is put the toolbar inside of another div, centered div. Right, and put what's inside of here, right? And then the center div, we can center that. And go back here and say center div. I want it to be margin auto, and then 0. And I want it to be the width of maybe 400 pixels. Center width, centered div. Class centered div. This one, right? Centered div with 400 pixels, margin. I think that's right, right? What's not centering it? I'm missing something. Let's see the background color. I'll change this to blue. Okay, it is making it 400 pixels. Maybe it's backwards. Okay, now it's centered. Right, it's centered. It's a pretty small toolbar, and I was only adding the coloring to make sure that I was getting it right. Okay. Something else that I might do. I don't like it that it's stuck completely to the bottom. I might want some kind of margin. Right. Notice that it's stuck. Right. If I make this smaller and I start resizing this, right, it's always stuck at the bottom. It's a toolbar, right, way at the bottom. Notice that I have a margin. Notice that it's always in the center, right, no matter what. Okay. So I might also add a little margin at the bottom, maybe 10. No, margin bottom, or maybe some padding bottom, 10 pixels. There we go. So we have it's now not stuck completely to the bottom. It has some margin. Now we can get rid of the coloring, the hideous coloring. That's maybe too big. There we go. Let's remove the coloring. We don't need that anymore. Okay, and we don't need this anymore. There we go. All right, we have the add button. It's hovering from the bottom. Okay. So another thing we might want to add here is, you know, a drop down, some kind of selector, right, that will allow us to choose what is it that we want to add. Right, we want to add a paragraph, an H1. What do we want to add? Right, so let's have it here, select, and in here we might have several options, and we might want to add an H1. We might want to add several headings. Maybe we want to add a paragraph. Maybe we want to add a div. Maybe we want to add an image. Maybe we want to add, I don't know, what else? A YouTube. Okay, there it is. It looks ugly, but we can paint that and say that I want this to be a, what is it? A form control, right? Class form control. There it is. All right, by default, form control takes up the entire size of whatever it has, right? So if it has 400 pixels, it'll take the entire width by default. We could configure it to be side by side. I forget what the styling is, but let me look it up real quick. It's in Bootstrap. Bootstrap. I think if we go here and we go to forms, we could choose, okay, side by side, inline, I think it's called. I think it's inline, I believe. Try that. So we're going to add, instead of a form, I'm going to just use a plain old div. And we're going to add that class. And we're going to refresh that. There we go. Okay, now just side by side. Right? And what I want to be able to do is I click, and as I click, I can choose what I want to add, and these things would appear in the center. All right, like a WYSIWYG editor. Right? So let's do that. What we're going to do is we're going to make this button, right? We're going to add a class here so we can grab it from jQuery and say, I want to listen to event handlers with the add button, right? So we're going to have the add button. I'm going to go to my JavaScript here, and I'm going to do what? Notice I would typically do what? In here, I would have some kind of init function, and then the init function is here, right? I could do that. What did we say about last week? We said that you know, some other JavaScript that we're loading, some other library, depending on the order in which we load them, there might be another JavaScript library that also has an init function. Yes? And we might either override that function because here we're just redefining it, yes? Or depending on the order of loading, there'll be some other library who also has an init function who might override us. Yes? So it's often the case you will find that we have it inside here. We have the init function in here without littering the namespace. Okay. All right. So we're going to have it here, and in here, what we're going to do is have our initialization is that we're going to. You might have your own init function. You might have it in here. Right, and then in here you might call init, right? That initializes, right? So here I might say console.log, you know, hello. If that works, right? We can go to F12 here and see the code. Let's see what this spits out. So if you load this, it says hello. All right, so that code is running, right? That code is running. It is too big. Doesn't fit. Does it have like a minimum size? Oh, it probably has a minimum size. Okay, that's fine. Because notice that it's but Bootstrap is friendly to phones, right? It says, oh well, you must be on a phone if you're so small, right? So our button should also perhaps take up the entire space. But let's leave it like that. Okay, how big is this? Okay, that's 100. I'm just making it bigger so you can see. All right, so what do we want to do in our init function? What we want to do is map all the event handlers in our that we have. So the only event handlers that we might have is that particular add button. Yes. So let's grab that. Let's grab it, and I believe we called it add button. Right. And if you click it, we want to call another function that says add element. Right. So that's our event handler. Actually, we should probably say call it some generic name. You know, add button handler. Why? Because we might be that we don't just want to add an element. We want to do a lot of things, of which one of them is add an element. Right. So it's better to use a generic handler name, and then in that handler do all sorts of things. Yes. Right. So we might say. So here's our event handler, our function, add button handler, and in here, well, let's see if it's connected. We're going to say console.log adding element. If that works, if we click here and we press on add, it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Oh, dot add, right? Correct? Well, let's try it again. There it is. Add element is being invoked. Okay, so what do we want to do? Well, let's see. We could go one of two ways. One of them is we could create some kind of object representation of the documents. Some kind of JavaScript JSON representation, right? And then have pass this object to a renderer, and the renderer would then use this object to then draw the document. We could go that way. We could go that, and I believe that might be the better way to go. Or we could just start adding stuff to the page, which is much more fun. Okay, so let's use the fun part first, right? And then we can revisit this and see if we can make a more an object-oriented way of doing this. But let's start adding stuff to the page, right? So let's see, what do we want to add? Well, it depends on what we select here. We need to know what is it that was selected, right? Okay, so let's grab that, and I believe we called it, what do we call it? It's this selector, right? It's this selector. We have to give it a name. Let's give it a name. Let's say element type. Okay, where we can grab that element type. So let's go to a JavaScript and say, okay, I need to know what the type is, right? I can say var element type, and now we're going to grab that from the element type and get the value. Get the value. Let's type it. Let's print it. Let's see if we got it. If we got it, element type. Run this again. We say add. Notice that it says h1. See that? Or div. I say add div. You see that? Okay. Now, oftentimes these drop downs should be a little more human readable, right? I might not know what h1 is, or h2. If I know HTML, yes, I know. But if I don't know my HTML, maybe I should use names that are more akin to what you might find in a Word editor, right? So I might go here and make it a little more friendly and say, well, this is heading 1, and maybe in parentheses for those that know what that means, heading 2 in parentheses h2, and this is heading 3, heading parentheses. This might be paragraph. Division, div, section, div, image, img, and this will be what? A YouTube, and we'll add it probably with an iframe. Okay, I believe YouTube is added using an iframe, right? So let's do a frame. Okay. Now, if I reload that and I say add, notice that what I'm getting is the entire element, right? The entire content of the option, right? Typically, this would not be very useful for programmatically speaking, right? Because typically, as programmers, we have to make the decision. We have to distinguish with labels are being rendered for the user, right? And constants, right, that we could use as indices or keys into a database, or how this maps into our data model. Yes, right? So typically we might want to, in this option, we might say here, use the value h1, and these are maybe the keys that we can use for the real values, right? These are the computer values, right, that we can use in our logic. Yes, I have 2 and 3, 1. This might be p. This might be div, this might be img, and this might be YouTube. If we render that again and we say add, notice that what we get is now, right, the key, right, the value that is associated to that option. Make sense? Right? Now, what we could do is that I believe most of the HTML is done. We're not going to do much here. In our JavaScript, what we might want to do is that we can use those keys into some kind of templating, into some kind of template that says, if these are the templates, var, HTML templates, we could create a JSON object that we can use those h1, h2, h3, right, as keys, right? So h1 is going to map to the following HTML. It's going to be H1, right? So heading 1. Right? And we can have several of these templates. Let's see. 2, 3, and then paragraph. And this is a paragraph. P, and this is a heading 1, 2, 3. 2, 3, and then here 2, 3. Okay. Right. So this is a paragraph. And as a paragraph, maybe we might fill it up with some lorem ipsum, some bogus content that we can paste in there. You can paste in here some bogus content, paste it. There we go. Okay, so that's our templates. So now we can use the template, the element ID element type that we're getting from the UI. We could use it to grab the HTML from the template. Yes? All right, let's do that. All right, so we have here, var the HTML will be what? Will be from the HTML template. HTML templates indexed by our element type. And that's the HTML. See that? Make sense? And now we can add it to the document. Let's see, we could say body, right? Append the HTML that we have, right? And again, we say add. Notice adding heading 2, right? We say H2, then adds heading 2. Notice that it's a little smaller. H3, we can add H3. We can add a paragraph. That's a paragraph. Okay? No, we're adding content in there. That makes sense? That makes sense? Yes? All right. So we can append the content, but we want it to be a little better. We want to be able to position these things, right? I don't want it to be static like this, right? I don't want it to be static. What we might want to do, right, is that when we have the HTML, we could create a DOM version of this, right? We could create a jQuery version of this, of the HTML. Now that we have it as a jQuery object, right, that we're ready to put it, right, we're ready to put it as a jQuery object, we could do things such as make it draggable, right? Let's try that. If we reload and we add, notice that we can grab this and move it around, right? And you know, keep adding content, paragraph, right? And we can move around any one of these, right, that we're adding, right? But notice what's happening. See that the document, the original thing that I put in there, okay, wants to be as big as the document by default, okay? So instead of, and notice that where are they being added? They're always being added at the bottom. See that? They're always being added at the bottom. We're not removing this from the document, right? They're still want to be rendered, right, in the flow of the original document, right? So what we might want to do is position them, take them off of the flow, the automatic flow, right, and set an initial place where we can actually position it wherever we actually want. Okay, so let's do that before making it draggable. Right? Oh, actually, no. We can do a lot. You know, we can do certain things. We can not only draggable, but we also can change the CSS. We could say that we want it to be position absolute. Right? We want the top to be 100 pixels, and the left we want it to be 100 pixels. And then make it draggable. I mean, take it out of the original normal flow of the document, right? Make it absolute, and then I'll let you position wherever you want. Okay, so let's do that. Let's reload. Now we have H1, puts it in H1. There it is. And then I can position wherever I want. Notice that it knows that the size of the document. If I add another one, there it is. There's another H1. Here's a paragraph. I add it. There it is. Right. I can put it anywhere I want. Okay. Notice that I'm not setting the width. I'm not setting the width. So it knows that it's bounded on the right-hand side by the width of the entire document. What we might want to do is also give it a default width and height. We can say width by default 100 and a height by default of 100. Let's do that. Let's reload. Here's a paragraph. There it is. Maybe it's a little too small. It's a little too small. Maybe, actually, we might just have way too much text. Let's remove a little bit of the text. I also might be zooming in way too much. Maybe that's enough. Let me see the paragraph. Okay, there it is. Okay, I have paragraph. I have headings. I can add heading 1. Heading 1, notice that 100 is not big enough. Heading 2. Heading 3. There it is. Really, the width is not enough? Huh. Make it a little bigger, maybe. With make it 200, perhaps. Okay, that's big enough. And here's a paragraph. Okay, makes sense. I might also choose to make the draggable use a grid. Remember we did grid last week, and we're going to make it a 10 by 10 grid so that they're always going to be. I can put them flush with one another, right? So it'll make it easy for me to lay this out. So if I create 2 paragraphs, here's a heading, and I create a paragraph. Right, here's a paragraph. If I have another paragraph that I want to add, I want to add it next to it. I can put it right next to it. Notice that it's flush, right? Because I'm using a grid. Okay. I think now the template is way too small. Let me make it just a little bit bigger. See what the paragraph looks like now. Paragraph. Yeah, that's a little better. Now, not only do I want to make it draggable, I might want to make it also resizable, right? So I might say I want this to be resizable, also with a grid. So not only now do I have headers, right? I also have paragraphs that are resizable. There they are. Right? I can add another one, and I can resize it, give it another size. Okay, that makes sense, right? All right. Okay. Now, that's the add button. Okay. All right. Now notice that it's getting a little dirty, right? Notice that this has like a resize icon, and this has another resize icon. It's kind of ugly, right? A better solution might be that if I click on it and it's selected, right? Then I can resize and move it around. Only if I select it, for instance. Another thing that I might want to do is that when I select it, I might maybe want a delete button to appear, right? Or maybe an edit button that will allow me to, do more things with this, right? So what I'm going to do here is that I'm not going to make them draggable and resizable just yet. I'm going to comment that out. I'm going to do that only when you select on it, right? When you click on it. Make sense? Right? So here's the DOM. What I am going to do here is going to say that if you do click on it, if you do click on this DOM that I'm about to add to the document, if you do click on it, I want you to notify select element. Okay? Yes. I'm sorry? Okay. All right, then you'll see me for some time. All right, thank you. Oh man, thanks. All right, but let's go back where we were. All right, yes. So select elements. All right, so presumably there'll be a function that will handle this click, right? Instead of a select element, we might want to give it a more generic name, right? of which one of the things that it would do is select the element. Okay. For instance, one of the things that it should do perhaps is unselect all the other elements, right? Right. So that everything is in the correct state. Right. So let's call this a more generic name. Let's see. New element click handler. Right. And we'll create a function here that when I click on it, right, it'll notify me that it has been selected. Yes? Right, so let's do a console log. One of the things we might want to do is to invoke a select elements, right? So select the elements. How can we grab the element that was selected, that was clicked on? We can grab it by using the this. Right, we can say var element. We can say this. Right, and then we can print out the elements that was selected, that were clicked on. Right, we can say recording. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to record. Sorry. You'll have the code. Let's see. We have the event handler. We're going to go back here, and I don't want to see that. Where's the other one? This one. If I refresh and I add H1 and I click on it, there it is. Notice that I have an H1 representation. If I click a paragraph, say add, and I click on it, there's a paragraph. Right? Notice that I can't drag because I removed that. Right? I removed it. I'll do it in the select. Okay. All right. So one of the things I might want to do is unselect all the other elements and just select just this one. Okay. All right. So let's see. Now that I have the element, I might call a function that says unselect all of them, unselect all elements, and just select element. Okay. So here's our function. Unselect all elements, and the function select element. Okay, and we're passing as an argument the element. Okay, makes sense? So let's see if this works. So this is selecting. We'll do a console log selecting element. See if that works. If I add it and then I click on it, it says, yeah, selecting element. So everything is connected, right? Everything's connected. So how do we want to show it that we selected? Well, one thing we could do is grab the element and maybe like highlight it somehow. Maybe we could change the border color, or maybe we could change the background color, or make it maybe like a shadow around it, right? To do a shadow, let's do a CSS for shadow. So CSS box shadow. Yeah, there it is. That's the CSS that I need. Right? I'll grab that and I'll say, okay, I have the element. I want to do a CSS around it, right? That will be this. It'll be box shadow, okay, comma, and then this string over here. Okay. This over here for the box shadow. This says how many pixels off the center, right? Do you want to go to the right and then to the over? Okay. If we do that, let's see. No, not that. We refresh and we add it, and I click on it. It didn't work. Why are you not working? Element.css box shadow. CSS. Why not? Let me see. Are you applying it? Is it being applied? No. H1, Box sizing. Why are you not applying it? Did I reload? I did, didn't I? Selecting element. Element.css, box shadow. This should work. CSS. Try something else. Let me see. Does this work? Background color. It's red. Add. That works. Why does box? Did I copy it wrong? Box shadow. Add. All right. Okay. Didn't like the semicolon at the end, right? Okay. Notice that it's this shadow over here. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the off center 0, meaning I want it to be. I don't want it to move to the right or to the left, right? And the 5 is how many pixels over, right? How much bigger should it be? Bigger than the actual original width and height, right? So it's gonna be an overflow, right? So let's do that. If I click on the heading, I click on it. Notice that it has this border around it. You see that, right? And it becomes very, very slightly. You notice that it's still not draggable, right? All right, so we know how to show it. We also want to make it draggable, so we can say element.draggable, and we also want to make it resizable, resizable, if I spelled it correctly. Oops, undefined is not a function. Did I spell this wrong? Probably, right? Okay, now it's resizable, so I can resize, and it's still draggable and resizable. That makes sense, right? I'm going to put a grid of 10 by 10 for both of them. Okay, so about paragraph. Can I add a paragraph? Yep. So I can select it. There it is. It's selected. I can resize it. I can move it around. I can put position wherever I want it. Make sense? All right. Okay. But what about when I have several of these, right? If I add another paragraph, I click on it. I'm moving this, but this one is also draggable and selectable. So it's kind of weird, right, that I have two things selected. So instead, what I might want to do is the unselect all elements, right? Okay. So what I might want to do here is I want to grab all the elements, but do I want to select all the elements? What about the toolbar? The toolbar is kind of there as well, part of the DOM, isn't it? So I should be able to distinguish the ones that are really the ones I'm adding because I added them, right? And the ones that are there because they're part of the toolbox or some other controller that I want there. Those I don't want to touch. I don't want to make them draggable or undraggable or anything like that, right? So I need to be able to distinguish between the two, right? One thing that I could do is that use the templates. Use a template and say this is an H1, right? That is part of the IDE, right? It's part of the IDE are things that are being added because I'm adding them, right? So I'm going to add here a specific class to be able to distinguish. So these are classes that are part that I'm adding, right? Also for div. I'm going to use a D. Div. Div. Lowercase p, and there's a div. Okay. So that when I add, right, and I select, if I inspect it, notice that it has the class IDE. You see that? So I can grab all the elements that have that class. I can grab them around. I can grab them and make them unresizable, on whatever, right? All the things, right? So for instance, on unselect, what I might want to do is grab all the IDE elements, grab all of them, and remove the box shadow. Remove the box shadow, right? So I might say CSS, grab all of them, and remove the box shadow. So I'll make it 0 pixels. Okay, so when I click, I unselect all the elements, and then I select that one element. Okay, so let's see. If I add one heading, and I click on it, and I can move it, and I have H2, and I click on it. If I click on that, it unselects the other one. See that? But notice that I still can drag it. I can still drag it. And we might want to remove that, right? So that only one is selected, and I'm only editing or modifying or resizing just one of them, and not all the other ones, right? So I might want to remove this draggable, even though it's not selectable, right? So let's remove that. So we'll say when you unselect, we're also going to remove the draggable and the resizable, right? We need to destroy them. If we go real quick to the jQuery, if we go to jQuery draggable documentation, right, and you go to the API documentation, it says that these are all methods that you can call on the draggable or resizable, right, on all of these. One of them is destroy. It says don't make this draggable anymore, right? Don't make this draggable or resizable. You can also send this, and the way it's done is by calling .draggable destroy. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to say that IDE.css, that's going to be applied on all IDEs. I'm going to do the same thing for the IDE. I can say .draggable destroy. Now, the thing is that this might fail. This might fail because if it's not already draggable, okay, it'll say this was never draggable in the first place, right? It's going to throw an exception. All right, let me show you. All right, if I click on this, right, and we show our console here, right, and I click on it, right, and I click, it's going to try and grab all the IDEs, right? And notice that I haven't made anything draggable yet, right? Because I'm first unselecting all the other ones, right? It's complaining that, you know, it found many IDE elements that were never draggable in the first place, okay? So let me stop that for a second. Let me show you what we could do, right? Notice that when I make something draggable and I click and it's draggable, if I right-click on it, right? If I click on it, notice that it adds these classes. You see these classes, UI draggable, UI resizable, right? jQuery is adding those classes, right, to keep track of things that are draggable or not. Okay. Well, we could use that as a check to see, are you draggable, right? If you are draggable, then I want to destroy you. Otherwise, I'm going to leave you alone. Okay. So what we could do is, but we need to do it one at a time. We need to be able to not apply to all IDEs, right? Because some IDEs will be draggable, some IDEs will not be draggable, right? We would like to be able to iterate over all the IDEs, and depending on which one, if you're draggable, I like to destroy you, otherwise not. Okay? That's one way of doing it. The other way is that we only call destroy on the currently selected element, right? Notice that here we are blanket selecting all of them, right? Right, but really we should be doing it only with who? Only really there's only one that is selected at any one time, right? So what we could do, right? What we could do is whenever we have the elements, we know the one we're about to select. Yes. What we could do is tag it as the only selected element. Right? We could say element dot add class. Oops, where'd it go? Selected. All right. Now, when we're going to unselect, what do we have to do? Only unselect the one that is really selected from the last time we selected anything. You see that? Right? So we could say IDE selected. Now we know that it's that one that was selected. We're going to turn off the shadow. All right, we're going to turn off the shadow, and presumably this is the only one that has been selected to be draggable, right? It should already have the draggable there. Notice that if I don't know if I'm going to get an exception if it doesn't already exist. Let me see. I'm going to add. Okay, it didn't complain. Let me add another. Oops. Initialization, draggable, blah blah blah. Wait a minute. Let me resize that. Do that again. Add. Click. I'm moving. I'm going to add another one. I'm going to select. Right, and it unselected this one. It's still resizable, but notice that it's not draggable. I can't drag it anymore. I have to first select it. Oh, what's it complaining? Draggable prior, blah blah blah. Cannot. Oh, maybe it selected it. Now it thinks that two things are selected. Maybe, right? Let's see. We might have to check anyway. Resizable, destroy. Let's see. Click. I can drag. Click. Oh. What's going on? Selected. Are there more than one? Let's see. Selected equals selected. Thank you. Smart. All right, so we are selecting one, right? And we want to unselect. So we're going to destroy this, and we're going to remove. Here we're going to say dot remove class selected. Yep. Thank you. Right. There were at some point there were two that were selected. Right. I'm painting everything that you touched as selected. We say, and there it is. So I click, I move around, add another one, move it around, I click. So notice selecting, and then I can resize. Now I notice that I cannot move this one or resize it. Well, now I clicked on it, right? And I can't move this until I click it. Very good. All right, so another thing we might want to put in here, right, is a button that will allow us to remove the elements. Okay? So let's see how we could do that. Right? What we could do is that when we select, right, right, we might want to add a delete button, perhaps on the top right corner, right? That if I click on that button, the whole element gets removed, right? So let's add that, right? So we have the elements, and make it resizable. I'm changing. Notice I don't need this, right? I can put this in a single. I can put all these in a single. Right. Right. This is all manipulating the elements, right? The same element. I'm adding the class. I'm adding the CSS, right? I'm making it draggable. I'm making resizable. Yes, right. What else would I want to be able to do? Is add a button, right? A delete button. So let's create a delete button, right? So we say here's a delete button. The var delete button. HTML might be something like button, and this is delete, maybe an X, right, and a class delete button. Okay, let's create the DOM from this, right? Delete button DOM, or some people might like to put a $sign in front of it, meaning this is the jQuery version of the HTML. Okay, so this is the $sign of this delete button delete button HTML. Right now, I have the jQuery version of that HTML. Now that I have that, I can maybe add a click event handler on this. So click delete button handler. And so if I click on that delete button, I will notify an event handler. So it's here. Copy. So I'll put a function here. Event handler. Right, and we'll say we can do console.log delete me. Okay. Anyway, so what do we do with this delete button? I want to append it, right? I want to append it to the elements, right? I want it to be shown in the elements, right? So if I click here or I click there, right, it'll append it and it'll show it there. So I'm going to append the delete button. Delete the $, delete button. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Right, so I'm going to add it and say add. Click on it. There's the delete button, really ugly. Right, so let's make it a little prettier. We'll say that this is a button. We'll say class button. This will be a button. It will be button danger. That'll make it red. Okay. Try it again. Say add. And when I click on it, there's a button. Right. But notice that it's adding it to the bottom, right? So it's part of the object, whatever's in there. So if I do it to the paragraph, there it is. Oops. Oh, every time I click, it's adding it. Right. Every time I'm clicking, I'm adding it. Over here, every time I click anywhere, right, it adds it. Right, there it is. And if I click on it, if I click on the button, notice that it says delete me. Right, delete me. Okay. Let's see. Select button. Right. Now, what we might want to do is that if the element is already selected, right, just ignore the click. Right. We might say, here's the element, and we might say, if element dot has class selected, I'm just going to return. I'm not going to do anything. Okay. So let's see if that helps here. We select, click. Still doing it. Has class. Is it has class? Let me see. jQuery has class. Has class. Has class. Class name. Selected. Did I spell this correctly? I'm sorry? Oh, no. If it already has the class, I would ignore it and go back, right? If it doesn't have the class, I do want to select it, right? Is the logic backwards? Let me print this. Let's see what it comes back as. Let's do console log. Oh, the dot select? No. Yeah, right. I think so. I believe so. So let's see what this comes out to be. Oop, not that one. Let's add and let's click. Okay, it's false. If I click it again, oh, it's false. Wait, does it have the class? Yeah, it says selected, right? Has class selected. Why is this not working? Has class, blah, 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 blah. Determine whether any of the match elements are assigned to the given class. Class name, foo bar, has class foo, bar. These all return true, but this returns false. Interesting. Has class, why are you returning false? Select, did I misspell it? Add class selected. Add class selected. As class element. Let me print this element here. Let's print the element. Let's see what the element I'm getting. Add. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, no. Okay, so I click on it. All right, so it does not have selected, right? It's H1 IDE. If I click it again, I get H1 IDE. Yes. Oh, that's right. Right, because what I do is I unselect all the other ones, right? I grab the currently that one that is selected. Okay, okay. All right. So I remove the selected and then I add it back in, right? So by the time I get here, it's already unselected, right? Is that correct? So unselect all elements. So unselect all elements. So how should we do this? I'm removing it. Select the element, unselect the element. Right. I need to check if it's the same one, right? If it's the same one, then don't remove it, right? Yes. Could be. Could be. Right. Right. So let's see. Wait a minute. Let me see. Let me check something. Elements. Right. Let's see elements. So if the element already has the selected, then I don't need to remove it, right? If the one that I clicked on doesn't have the selected, then yes, I should remove it from the other ones, right? Okay, so if the element already has, so I'm passing the element, if the element already has the class selected, it's already selected, then why bother, right? If the one that you clicked on does not have the selected, then unselect the one that is selected. That makes sense, right? Okay, let's try that. Let's see if that makes any sense. Click. Okay, it's not doing it now, right? So if I click, if I add another one, right, it doesn't keep adding it. Very good. Okay, it adds it. It adds it. Basically, I have to remember to remove the delete button when I unselect, right? When I unselect, not only do I, do all that removing the draggable and resizable, I need to remove the old button in there, right? So the unselecting, I'm going to also find the button, find the from the selected, I need to find, starting at selected, find the delete button, and just remove it. Like if I have another one, still works. Oh, I didn't remove it. Why didn't it remove it? Oh, because I just removed the selected, right? Again, H1, add. Why are you not removing it? If it's find delete button. Is that what I call the delete button? Oh, it's a class, right? Is that what the delete button is called? Delete button. There it is, right? Let's try it again. H1. H1. Okay, it's removing it. All right. Okay, so how do we actually remove? Notice that it's part of the content of that particular tag, right? If I add a paragraph, and add the paragraph, there is, notice that it adds it at the bottom, at the end of the end. What I really would like to be able to do is put it right here. Okay, let's put it right here, right? So we could go back to our apps.css and style the button, right? We could say .delete button. What we want to be able to do is position it, position absolute, and then say that I want the top to be 0 pixels, and I want the right to be 0 pixels. So I want it stuck on the right-hand side and at the top. Okay. What is this complaining about? Position absolute. Oh, no quotes. Sorry. Right. So let's try that. Try that. So let's add the button right there. Okay. Let's see. Notice that it's now stuck always at the top right. You see that? Right. I can move it around. I can now add the paragraph. Add that. I click it, and notice that it's above the text, right? And it's not interfering with the text. See that? Right. Okay. Maybe it's a little too ugly that it's right to the top left. Maybe I want to add some margins to this, right? Maybe I want to add some margin, 10 pixels, and 10 pixels by 10 pixels. Add that. Maybe it's too much. Let me add 5 pixels and 5 pixels. Yeah, that's good. And the paragraph. Okay, that makes sense? All right. So finally, we want to be able to click on it and say, delete me. I want to really, really delete this thing, right? So how can we delete it? So what we could do is, notice that we have a function that answers for the handler, the delete button handler. You see that? What we could do is grab the button, right? So var, here's a button, is in the this. That's who generated the event, right? If I do console log the button, right? Console the button, it'll tell me what button generated that event. Okay, so if I click on it, right, and say H1, like this, and I click on the delete button, it says there it is. Wait, H1, delete me. Where's delete me? Oh, there's the delete button. There's the delete button. Okay. Do I have several other consoles? Let me turn off all the other console log because it's getting too big. Remove that. Reload. Add. Select, and then I click. Notice that's delete. There's a delete button. See that? Right. So it's not enough to delete that button. I can't just say button remove. If I do that, what's going to happen? I'm just going to remove the button, right? I don't want to remove the button. I want to remove who? The parent element that I'm inside. Yes, I might be inside of a paragraph, inside of a div. I might be inside of an H1. I want to remove whoever I'm parent with, right? So this will remove just the button, right? If I say click, notice that the button goes away, but the actual element is still there, right? So what we're going to do is that we're going to get the parent of the button, right? So we could say var parent element will be button.parent. Dot parent, again, that's a jQuery method that allows you to retrieve the current element that I'm inside, right? So I can display that. So now if I say H1 and I click on that button, notice that it's the H1 who's returning. You see that? That's the element that I want to remove. So I can say just parent element remove, and it'll remove it from the DOM. Okay. Let's do that. H1. I click on remove. It just removes the entire thing from the DOM. All right. Or if it's a paragraph, same thing. There's a paragraph. You can add another paragraph, right, and just add it here, right? And I can remove that particular paragraph. Make sense? So the last thing that that is left is that we'd like to be able to do is edit the content, right? We would like to be able to edit the content and then perhaps save it to a database, right? I don't think we have enough time to save it to a database, but I think we have enough time to make this editable, right? Now, we could perhaps pop up some kind of complex, sophisticated WYSIWYG editor like text edit or one of these plugins that allow you to do all sorts of styling of the text. But we'll use something very, very simple, right? There's an attribute in HTML5, right? That if you turn on that attribute, any content becomes now editable, right? So for instance, if I say here paragraph and I say content editable equal true, okay, it's an HTML5 attribute, right? And I resize that and I add a paragraph. Notice that a cursor appears, right? And I can select content, right? And I can remove and type some more, right? Notice that my paragraph is becoming bigger, right? And I can resize the overall container of the paragraph, right? I can still drag and I can still resize, right? I do not have control over the select and the drag because I'm already using that for dragging, right? But I still have access to my cursor. I can select. I can make things bold, right? I can make things. I can underline things, right? I can make things italic, right? By using the typical Control I, B, Control B, Control U that you would expect in any editor, right? There's Control Paste, right? You can say Control C, Control V. So most of the very basic, right, control that you might have in any editor are still there, right? You can still move them there, and it's becoming a fairly complex WYSIWYG editor, right? The same thing is true for on a div. If you turn this on in a div, right? You can also edit divs. So you have a div here. And that's a div. Although here, as far as we're concerned, right, the div and the paragraphs are really interchangeable, right? There's almost no difference between them. Okay, that makes sense, right? The only other thing is that what about YouTube widgets, right? Or images? Well, in images, these are what we call direct manipulation widgets, right? You can manipulate them directly, right? You click on it and you can start modifying them on the spot, right? Whereas an image, you can't really manipulate directly, right? You need some kind of UI, some kind of form where you can actually type perhaps a URL or something, right, that tells you where the image is located or whatever. Yes, in YouTube, typically you might need the iframe that you need to copy and paste and insert in your text, right, in your site. So you need some kind of indirect manipulation of those other widgets, right? So we might be able to do, for instance, for an image, we might have some kind of form, right, that we might be able to edit. Okay, or what about once we've added it? How are we going to modify it? Right, we're still going to need some kind of form, there's a couple of options that we have. We could have a form way down here, perhaps, where you can type in some arguments, right? If to be used for that particular widget, right? We could do that. Let's see, what could we do? Well, we could have, like many widgets might have, like an edit button, right? But if you click on that edit button, it pops up something, right? If it's a YouTube widget, it might allow you to provide the URL for the YouTube video, right? If it's an image, right, it might allow you to type in the URL for that image, right? So it could pop up some kind of prompt where you can type in the value in there. So let's do that, right? JavaScript provides a very simple form, right? A simple form where you can pop up a little small message, type in some values, say okay, and then it continues, and then it gives you back that value, and then you can reuse it for something, right? So let's do that. Let's add an edit button over here that would allow us to edit that one element. All right, let's do that. Okay, so let's see, where is the so where we added the delete button, we're also going to add an edit button. Yes? Okay, so where do we add the delete button? Let's see. Here's a delete button. Let's add very similarly, let's add an edit button. So here's an edit button. There's going to be a class, and we're going to call this the edit button. And instead of danger, we'll make it green, right? Or yellow. Alert. I think it's yellow. And we'll use a ... Meaning if you click on this, some form will pop up. Okay. And we're going to have this be the edit button. Edit button. Here's the edit button. And we're going to add it. We're going to append it to the element, the edit button. Edit. Okay. And we need to style it. It's going to be very similar to the delete button. Okay. So what we might want to do is share this. We can copy this. We can copy and paste it and say that this is the what? This is the edit button, right? And we're going to make it a little bit to the left of the delete button. So we're going to make it to from the right. We're going to make it maybe 40 pixels to the left. Starting from the right, measure from the right. So let's see what happens here. If I click here and I add the edit button, I click on it. Oops. Something happened here. Edit button, blah, blah, blah. Oh, there's no edit handler. We didn't create an edit handler. So presumably there's an edit button handler. So we need a function that does something when we click on that, right? Which is going to be very similar to this function. We could make this a little more cryptic and put all this in one single line of code, right? But I think this is a little easier to read. For the edit button, let's leave it. Let's just put here a console log editing, and then there's a button and the parent. We're gonna need that, right? Editing, and then print out the parent element that we're editing. Okay, let's see. Click. There's the edit button. Apparently, I didn't do a good job at styling it. What did I use? Alert. Maybe not that alert. Maybe it's warning. Okay, warning is yellow. There it is, right? If I click on it, it'll say, oh, it's that one that I'm editing. Everybody okay? All right. Okay, now depending on the type of widget, we might need to have a form pop up or not, right? For instance, for a paragraph, the editing is direct, right? It's direct manipulation. I just start typing to edit it, right? I don't need a form to edit it. For the widget, for the YouTube widget or the image widget, we might need an extra form, right, where we can actually type the URL of the image, right? So we need to know what type these things are. What are you? H1? Are you a paragraph? Are you an image? What are you, right? And depending on that, we can decide what to do. Okay. So we could what we could do in our edit handler is find out what type are you. Okay. What is my parent? What is the type? Okay. One thing we could do is add that class here, you know, H1, so we can grab it from here. This is H3. This is P, and this is div. And we could grab the parent H1, the type, but for me it's easier to just grab it from the class. Right? So what we could do is that if in the edit button we can check, well, if the type, we can say var type is well, no, sorry, you know, if the parent element, right, has class, if it's an image, img, did I create one for an image? Oh, we don't have an image. Let me create an image. This is img, and this is img. Content editable, no. Class is an IDE, and the type is img. And I can just close that. Right? Maybe I should add a dummy image. Right? Let me add a dummy image. So I'll do a source, and let me grab an image from the internet. What image should I use? R2D2. I want images for R2D2. Let me grab that one. I'll say, oops. View image. So that's the JPEG. There it is. So I'll grab it. I'll just paste it here. So if I have an image, I'll add that. Let me see if I first can add an image. Let me make sure that I can add an image. Let me see img. Image, there it is. Add. There it is. There's my image. All right, I can't drag it. Why can't I drag it? Can I resize it? I can resize it. Why can't I drag you? Let me see. Why can't I drag you? img. Is it draggable? Let me see. Right click, inspect element, image draggable. It is. It says that it's draggable. Why can't I drag you? Class img IDE UI draggable and resizable. I can resize you, but I can't drag you. Interesting. And there's no delete button. Why is the delete button not appearing? Let me see. What did I miss? I have H1, H2 templates. Destroy. Absolute add button handler. I have 420. Element selected. Delete button. Is the delete button there? Oh yeah, there's the delete button. This is an image. Why are not showing? Oh well, you know, one thing is that probably also the image tag is not supposed to have anything inside of it, right? So a better representation of the image might be to have a div outside. To have a div outside, an outer div with an image inside. And then I can append the button to the div. Let's try that. Here's the image. I say add. Oh my goodness. Oh, there it is. Can I drag you? Okay, I can drag you. I can drag you, but you're too big. Okay, can I resize you? Okay, I can resize you. Where's the image? Let me see. Let me look at the image. So there's the image. There it is. If I change the styling and I'd say that the width is 100%, there we go. All right, so let's change the image here and say that the width is 100%. Let's see. Let's try that again. Image, add. There we go. There we go. I can move it around. I can resize, and it'll take up the entire width of the image, right? I could also choose the height to be 100%, but then it'll skew, right? It'll deform the image, right? Based on, and maybe that's what we want, right? Maybe that's what we want. So let's try that. Let's see what that looks like. So I might want to be the height also to be 100%. And so I can say image, add. Yeah, it deforms, right? So it deforms to whatever the outer div is there. See that? So okay, fine. So if I click on this, what I want to be able to say, right? In the edit, where's the edit handler, right? If well, not the parent, right? Yeah, the parent has what? I can put here class, right? Class IDE. This is the IDE, right? And here's an image, img, right? So it will not be part of this. So this is not the IDE, and this is not the image, right? The outer div is really the widget. Yes. So okay, so if it has the image class, what I want to be able to do is what? Well, first of all, let me make sure that I can determine between images and non-images. So this is an image. Okay, so for instance, if I add a heading, and here's a heading, right? In the console, let's see, in the console, if I click on edit, it says editing, but what about an image? Let me add an image and say add, right? Oops. Oh, I never removed the edit button, right? We're removing the delete button. We're not removing the edit button, right? All right, if I click on here, okay, it can determine that this is indeed an image, right? But the other one was not. Okay, very good. All right, so anyway, so in the notice that we remove the delete button when we're unselecting, right? So we better do the same thing. We better do the same thing for the edit button, right? The edit button, we're going to remove from there, right? So what do we want to do? We want to prompt the user. We want to prompt the user with something where they can paste the URL. Okay, right? So you can use JavaScript prompt box. Okay. Well, we can just say alert or prompt. Where's prompt? Prompt box, right? Where we can provide a text, right? And some default text in a window that allows us to paste in there some information, right? So let's do that. So if it's an image, I want to do a prompt. And the prompt will say provide URL, image URL, image URL. Right, so let's do that. Let's reload here, and let's add the image. Oops, the image. Add. There's the image. When I click, notice that a prompt appears where I could type in a URL of the actual image that I want in there. Okay, make sense, right? Once I have that, what happens is that this prompt blocks the entire browser until you click on OK or cancel. Okay, and it provides you var the URL or the data that it comes back when you say OK. Right, so we can do console URL. You can say URL. You can type in the URL. So if I reload this, right, and I add an image, right? And I click, I can type in, say OK. Notice that's the text that we typed, right? We can use this URL to now go in and replace the URL of the image. You see that? Right. So now I have a the beginnings of an IDE that allows me to create content on demand. All right. I think we have 4 more minutes. 4 more minutes, right? Okay. So let's see if we can edit that image. All right. So for instance, we might go here and look up some other content. Let's see. We can say we'll go to we'll look for R2D2 or the Millennium Falcon. Images. And Lego. That's too big. Well, let's see how big this is. Okay, let me grab that. So if I go here and I edit and I paste it here and say, okay, that's the URL, right? So what we could do is, now that we have the image, right, we have the parent, we're going to find the image, we're going to change the URL source, right? We're going to say, all right, we get the parent element. We know it's a div, right, which contains an image, yes? So let's find the image. Let's find the image tag, the img tag. Now we have the image tag. We're going to change its attribute, right, of the source attribute. We're going to change the source attribute to be this URL that we now have in our possession, right? So let's do that. No, let's do the image. So here's the image. Let's grab the image. So there it is. So I can click on it and paste the URL. Let's say OK, and now it's the URL. Now it's the Millennium Falcon. Okay, and I change it. And I can resize it and do whatever I want, right? Or I can remove it. That makes sense? All right. So now what we want to be able to do is, now that we would have some kind of documents, we would like to be able to save this, right? We'd like to be able to maybe give it a page name, right? Save it publish it, save it, make it available for others to see, right? This currently only lives where? It lives only on my browser, right? Right. When I reload, everything is gone, right? So I would like to have a save button. So let's add a save button real quick here. In the toolbar, we could add a button here. Say a save button class button button. We'll do primary. Right, we'll call it the save button. Save button. And here, call it save. Let's see. There's a save button, and when we click on it, right, we can say JavaScript. Whenever we click on the save button, we want to call the save handler, right? We say function save button handler in a console log. Basically, what we want to be able to do is grab all those elements we added, grab all of them .ide that have the tag .ide, right? All of them have the IDE. We say elements, the IDE, and we can say console log, and these are all the elements in an array, right? So if I add a heading, here's a heading. Right, if I add an image, that's the image, right? If I click on save, notice that it comes back as an array, right? An array of elements of which we have h1 and div. See that? Here's the h1, right? And here's the div, right? And we could use this array, right, to build some kind of JSON representation that we can push and save it on the server. And then tomorrow we can reread it and re-render the page the way we left it. Okay. All right. We're gonna leave that for next for Wednesday, and we'll play around with more of this. Okay. Any questions? All right. I'll post the image, the video, whatever is left of it, and I'll post also the source. Okay. All right. Thank you. Also, I'll be in my office till 5:30. I can't stay till 6. I need to leave a little earlier today. So if you want to chat with me, perhaps you can follow me to my office and we can chat there. All right. Thank you. Yes. Let me stop this for a second. Stop.